Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
A very good morning to all of you. Today we'll continue our discussion with special random variables. And if you recall, in the past two lectures, we talked about special discrete and continuous random variables. And in the process, we defined those variables, their probability distribution functions, and some of their properties like mean, variance. We also checked whether they are valid probability distribution functions or not. We discussed, for example, in the discrete case, the binomial random variable, Poissonian random variable, negative binomial, geometric, and so on. And also among the continuous random variable, we discussed uniform random variable, an exponential random variable. And today we are going to discuss a very important continuous probability distribution in the entire field of statistics, and it is the normal random variable. Undoubtedly, the most widely used model for the distribution of a random variable is a normal random variable. So whenever a random experiment is replicated, the random variable that equals the average or total result over the replicates tends to have a normal distribution as the number of replicates becomes large. A normal distribution is also referred as a Gaussian distribution. It was introduced by the French mathematician Abraham de Moivre, I think so in 1700 something, and was used by him to approximate probabilities associated with binomial random variables when the binomial parameter n became very large. Then subsequently this result was extended by Laplace and others and is now encompassed in a probability theorem as the central limit theorem, which we'll discuss in subsequent lectures. And this also gives a theoretical base to the often noted empirical observations in practice. So you will see this typical bell-shaped curve is quite oftenly seen in many day-to-day applications, and many random phenomena obey at least approximately a normal probability distribution. Like simply if you take the height of a person, mass of a person, viscosity of a liquid, or a combustion rate of a propellant, whatever. So the velocity in any direction of a molecule in a gas, error mode which you encounter while measuring physical quantities. Most of the times, if n becomes large, you will see that they tend to form a bell-shaped curve. Okay, and this normal distribution is by far the most important probability distribution. And as I mentioned, one of the main reasons for that is the central limit theorem, which we will discuss in subsequent lectures. So just to give you an idea, what the theorem states that if you add a large number of random variables, the distribution of the sum, and if you scale it by n, it will become the mean. So the distribution of the sum, or equivalently the mean, will be approximately a normal random variable under certain conditions. So the importance of this result comes from the very fact that many random variables in real life can be expressed as sum of large number of random variables, and by virtue of central limit theorem, one can argue that distribution of the sum should be normal. Okay, so it is the most important results and probability. But before using that or discussing that, we should know what is a normal random variable. So let us introduce the normal random variable and discuss some of its properties. So in this discussion, you will see a lot of equations, but I would urge not to get intimidated by them because they are essential to understand the nature of this probability distribution and to deduce its properties. At first, it might look like a complex distribution function, but once you know how to use it, things become easier. And once you approximate, and you'll realize that once you approximate something as a normal random variable, then calculation of probabilities become very easy. Okay, so let's see what is the form of this distribution. So a normal random variable, let's say x, is defined if the probability distribution function is given by the following form. So fx is 1 by root over 2 pi times sigma e to the power minus x minus mu whole square by 2 sigma square, where x lies between minus infinity to plus infinity and sigma is greater than 0. So you can see that it is a 2-parameter variable. So it's 2 parameters and mu and sigma, and if you specify these 2 parameters, the normal random variable is completely determined. So you can show in the schematic, you can see in the schematic below the shape of the normal random variable. It is your typically bell-shaped curve. It's also famously called as bell-shaped curve, and you can see that you often see this type of distribution whenever you do any experiments or whenever you study analysis of large size data. And the right hand panel shows the cumulative distribution of a random variable. Here I have taken the random variables which have mu is equal to 0 and for various sigma. I've also taken one, it's also shown when mu is equal to minus 2 and sigma has different values. So this is how the normal random variable is defined, and one sees that the expression is not very simple, it's quite complicated. So we would like to see that why you have such an expression. Although mathematically you can see that this mathematical formulation describes the curve, describes a normal curve, but it is also important to see or realize why you get such an expression. Okay, so we'll not exactly derive whatever has been done by De Moivre, but we'll just take a very simple method to see the same analysis what De Moivre applied to binomial samples or binomial probabilities for large n. So essentially what we are going to see is that we'll take a binomial distribution, and in the approximation for large n, or where n tends to infinity, we'll see that whether it converges to a normal distribution or not. So let us consider a binomial distribution for large n. So that's a good approximation, because you see that happens when n becomes, you see a normal random variable when n tends to infinity. That's how De Moivre studied, and that's how this distribution came into picture. So for small n, you can easily calculate the binomial probabilities. So we are going to do for large n. So you know that Px is equal to k is given by n factorial divided by n minus k factorial times k factorial, p to the power k, 1 minus p to the power n minus k. So where p is the probability of the success of an event. So more or less you can define p is tends to k by n for n going to large values. So now we can use Stirling's approximation for the factorials, which is generally good when n has very large values. So let's see what does this approximation tells. So n factorial is approximately root over 2 pi times n, and then it's multiplied by n to the power n times e to the power minus n. That is the Stirling's approximation. So what we'll do, So we'll replace all the factorials in the expression for the probability mass function in equation 1 with this approximation. Because we are doing it for large value of n, so we can use Stirling's approximation for the factorials. So we have 3 factorials, n factorial, n minus k factorial and k factorial. So just substitute the Stirling approximation both in numerator and denominator. And after doing that, we can see that the probability of x is equal to k becomes equation number 3. So once just you try to substitute, I have not given all the steps, but I have only given most important steps, but they are very easy to follow. You just substitute all those things, some factors will cancel out, then you reorganize them to see equation number 3. Now once you get equation number 3, for k we can substitute x plus np. So n minus k becomes nq minus x because p plus q is equal to 1. This is something which we know from binomial random variable. And if you substitute for k and n minus k, you land up in equation number 4. So when x is equal to k, where now your k is np plus x, and you substitute the value for k and n minus k, you land up in equation number 4. Again, this is approximate because here we have taken the approximation that if you really put the values inside the square root for k and n minus k as per the substitution, then you ignore the terms having n. Having n because n is quite large. So you land up in equation number 4 and you just can absorb this constant because n, p, q, they are all constant inside this big C, and then you can reorganize all these terms into equation number 5, which is approximately equation number 6. You just manipulate it a bit more. Now, for the sake of convenience, we can take logarithm of both the sides, of both right hand side and left hand side, and then again we can use this expression which is ln 1 plus x. It's a sort of a Taylor series, and we just keep the first two terms. Okay, so once we do that, we land up in equation number 8. And then there is a bit more of reorganization of the terms to land up at equation number 9 and 10. See, this is important that you all work out these steps. I mean, this is just to see that you don't get the form of normal random variable out of thin air. Okay, the shape of the distributions comes naturally. So we are using a binomial random variable, and for large n we are seeing whether it converges to the form of the normal random variable which we just discussed let's say a few minutes before. So what we are getting, the probability of x is equal to k is approximately ln 6 minus x square by 2 npq. So probability is equal to exponential ln c minus x square by 2 npq, which is, so exponential ln c is c, so you recover your c 1 by root over 2 pi npq, and then exponential minus half. For x you can substitute k minus np square and npq by npq. So you get your equation number 11. Now if you see carefully, okay, for a binomial distribution we know that mu is np. This is something which we have already discussed, and its variance is npq, right? So if you see the parameters terms here in equation number 11, you can see that np is mu and npq is variance. So if you just substitute that, you'll get something like this. This is approximately 1 by sigma root over 2 pi exponential minus half k minus m whole square by sigma square. And this is nothing but, it has the same form as that of your normal random variable. Okay. So you start with a completely different distribution or random variable, let's say binomial random variable, and for large n we see that approximates to a continuous normal random variable. Okay. So now we'll discuss some of the properties of this normal random variable. And then we'll also learn how to calculate probabilities. So in this lecture, we'll only concentrate on normal random variables. So once we have defined the probability distribution function, it is important to see whether it's a valid probability distribution function or not. And since you can see that sigma is greater than 0 and mu is real, lying between minus infinity to plus infinity, so you can see that fx is greater than 0 for all x, because even if its mu is negative, we have x minus mu whole square, which again becomes positive, right? And then the next important thing is that fx integrated over all values of x, it has to be 1, because it is a probability distribution function. And it is important to see that we get it 1, so I have put the derivation here, and there are many ways you can arrive at this result. So this is one of the way which is mentioned in the slide. So you can start with your distribution function. So you can see that it's not a very easy distribution to solve, but we can utilize some of the tricks to arrive at the result. So we'll do some substitutions. So for x minus mu by sigma, you can take as another variable, let's say z, and then substitute inside the integration to get a more simpler form, 1 by root over 2 pi e minus half z square. So you just got rid, now you have transformed the random variable in terms of z. So the integration. Now you can square both the sides. So I is the value of the integral. So if you square both the sides, so you land up in the equation. Squaring both the sides, you get a nice form of I square. Okay, so which is 1 by root 2 pi. Then you have double integration, and you have to integrate for e to the power minus half x square plus y square. Okay. So now what we can do, you can use your polar coordinates here, because this x square plus y square, then our life becomes easier. So I'll just use the transformation x is equal to r cos theta and y is equal to r sin theta, and then I'll just substitute inside the integrals to get a much simpler and convenient form. And if I do all these manipulations, what I can see that your I square is 1. So I can be plus minus 1, but we know that fx is a formulation of a probability distribution function. It's a mathematical expression for that, and it has to be greater than 0. So I is plus 1, and which is what is expected from a PDF. Hence, normal random variable is a valid probability distribution function. See, you don't have to learn these things, but you should know how to use certain tricks to arrive at the results. So I have put all these equations for reference. But as such, in this course, we need not do all these integrations and all that, but rather use normal distribution to compute the probabilities. Okay. So then there are some other properties which we'll continue with. So all normal random variables are symmetric about mu. Okay, it's a symmetric distribution around mu. So if you put a vertical axis through the mu, you will get a symmetric curve. And this we can also see that. So if we see that f mu plus x is equal to f mu minus x, then we can check whether it is symmetric around mu or not. So that exercise has been done. You just have to substitute mu plus x in place of mu, and you get 1 by root over 2 pi sigma e to the power minus x square by 2 sigma square. Similarly, you substitute mu is equal to mu minus x, and you get the similar expression. You get the same value. So you can see that it is symmetric about mu. Then you can also see that the points of inflection of a normal distribution is mu plus minus sigma. This is something which you can do with your preliminary knowledge of calculus. So you take the double derivative and make it equal to 0, and you can see that the inflection point comes at around mu plus minus sigma. This is easy. So I have not put the entire derivation because it is hardly 3 steps, and I urge all of you to see that, because these are all characteristics of the normal curve. Okay, so the maximum height is at x is equal to mu. It is symmetric about mu, and then the points of inflection is at mu plus minus sigma on both the sides. So although these are simple properties, these are also the properties that define the curve, and these are the properties which we see by virtue of its formulation of its PDF, right? And you can also see that the normal curve approaches the horizontal axis asymptotically as we proceed in either direction away from the mean, right? So the PDF approaches 0 on either side once your x goes to plus or minus infinity. And the total area under the curve and above the horizontal axis is equal to 1. This is something which we have already seen. Now the next thing what we usually do is we compute the moment generating function of a normal random variable. And this is important because once you know the moment generating function, you can compute all the moments of this distribution. And this is a very important distribution, as I mentioned before, because this is taken as the standard reference for calculation of many moments. So we'll calculate the moment generating function first, and from that moment generating function we'll compute the mean and variance. Okay, you can also calculate mean and variance from the conventional definition, but here I'll follow that method. So in that sense, we also calculate moment generating function, we also know, and we can calculate any moments whenever we need later. Okay, so we'll just start from the definition of moment generating function. It is expectation value of e to the power tx. Now, so in x, now you have to just follow the conventional definition here. And here it might appear as a complicated integration, but we can do some simple substitutions as we did in previous slides to make it, to make it easier. So you just substitute z is equal to x minus mu by sigma, and then substitute inside the integrals. And then you can do a little bit of manipulation. Just you can try to make it a square of the entire thing, and you can take out the constants outside the sign of the integral to get the expression, maybe the statement before the last line, before the final expression. Okay, please follow these steps and do it yourself to understand it better. And then we can see that in the line before the final expression, you have on right hand side 1 by root over 2 pi integral minus infinity to plus infinity e to the power minus z minus t sigma square by 2. Now you see that this expression is nothing but your standard, your normal variable, right? So you can approximate it to be 1 and you get the final expression e to the power mu t plus t square sigma square by 2. This is the moment generating function of a normal random variable. Now from these, mean and variance calculation becomes easy. So take the first derivative with respect to t, which becomes equation number 13, and then take the second derivative with respect to t, which becomes equation number 14, and we know how to calculate moments. So the first moment, which is the mean, would be the expression for the first derivative, and you compute at t is equal to 0, so which will give you mu. And similarly you can calculate the second moment, which is expectation value of x square, and you will get sigma square plus mu square. And then variance is e to the power x square minus square of ex, which is sigma square. So you see that the two parameters of random variable are mu and sigma square, and this mu and sigma square are nothing but the mean and the variance respectively.